Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the brand new 2022 sequel book, Husband Material by Alexis Hall. So this is 2 years after the events that our beloved Luke O'Donnell and Oliver David Blackwood, they get together, right? We have our excellent summary of Boyfriend Material, which also came out 2 years ago. So there was not a need for this sequel, and Alexis has an interview at the end of the book, where he says that he didn't intend for there to be a sequel. It was kind of just a one-off book for Boyfriend Material, but popularity ensued, and it was recommended for this sequel. So here we are. So 2 years later, it's Oliver and Luke have grown together. Luke is basically living in Oliver's house. He still has his own flat in London, but it's a matter of what happens next. What's the next step of their relationship? So this is very much 4 weddings and a funeral, right? We start out May of a year, and we start out with Bridget and Tom's wedding, the shenanigans that ensue to get up to that particular day, and then that day itself. There's a closure moment of Luke and Oliver going to Luke's ex Miles' wedding, and his now fiance Jojo, who kind of invited Luke for his own self to see if he would be okay, because Luke seems to be okay after all of the crap that Miles put him through with, selling his stories for £50,000, to the local tabloids. And Jojo's this like massive, YouTube celebrity. So that was an interesting closure kind of moment. Then there was, who's the third wedding? Oh, Alex from work, from the Dung Beetle charity, and his wonderful fiancee Clara, aka Miffy. That was Muffy, excuse me. That was hysterical in the sense of the group of CRAPP members of the Beetle gang, inadvertently breaking into a house in Wales, thinking that it was Reese's friend's house that they were actually staying in. There was police involved, there was arrests, and then the upper social class was used, of course, to get them out. Very interesting. That was a very interesting. Then there was the funeral aspect of 4 weddings and a funeral. But it was interesting having that funeral, because you're supposed to be sad that Oliver's dad has passed, but he was a horrible, racist, homophobic POS, and Oliver literally tells him to go F himself. That was the last thing that was shouted at a restaurant. And then Oliver goes on a whole 8-page monologue at the funeral saying how terrible of a person his dad was, to certain degrees, but that David Blackwood was a complicated individual, and then he kept stressing that a lot. Having a reconciliation with Christopher at the end, his brother, that was neat. And then there's the planning of Luke and Oliver's wedding, because Luke eventually proposes to him after Miles' wedding. Very interesting, because the two of them don't want to get married, but they do want to get married in the sense that they want to be together, but they don't want the conventions of marriage. So that's just fighting and trying to figure out how to actually plan it. And then everybody's just trying to convince them, oh, it's just the wedding aspect, that the wedding is just the planning of it. The wedding is not reminiscent of how the marriage is actually going to be. So it was interesting, because then the last 2 pages, you're like, is the marriage actually happening? Are they breaking up? And then there's the announcement of Oliver's at the very last, like second to last paragraph of, "Thank you all for coming. Luke and I have decided we don't want the conventions of marriage. We're still going to, be together on our own terms." And they bolt in the rain. And my jaw dropped, because I did not expect the last 2 pages to be will they, won't they. I assumed it would be an epilogue kind of a thing of like, it's leading up to a marriage of our 2 heroes, but it didn't happen. And I'm shooketh. The wig is snatched. It's amazing to have an expectation and an assumption of something going through 400 some odd pages of a book, and then the last 432 pages are just chaos in regards to what is happening right now. Everything you assume is going to happen does not happen, and it's not 3 chapters before the end. It's not 2 chapters before the end. It's 2 pages before the end of the actual book. Bro, I did not expect any of that, and I think that that's the purpose of it. The book wasn't needed. The book happened, for selling purposes, and it makes perfect sense to continue the story of these characters who we know and love, and these are awesome characters. Luke and Oliver are wonderful together because they're two completely opposite people. Wonderful how the different dialogue that's written, Luke has very much his own words, and Oliver has very much his own words. But then to have it be they don't actually want to marry each other at the end was just such a twist. I didn't see it. I didn't guess it. I didn't see it. I just assumed the ending was going to be, and then they lived happily ever after. But that was the point. It's that you don't have to have the conventions of a marriage to be with someone. Just because it's now technically legal that same-sex couples can actually get married, you don't actually have to get married to still be with that person. It's so neat. This is a conversation book. It's a conversation piece. It's a conversation book. I am so impressed with it because I did not expect it. I didn't see it. And that's why we're talking about it. That's why we're having a conversation about how the unexpected happened within this book and our views and thought process of the unexpectedness happening throughout this book, specifically at the end. So, will there be another book? Probably not. Will there be sequel books? Alexis does mention that at the end of the little interview blurb at the end. We'll see. We'll see what happens next. We'll see what other adventures or stories in this beautiful world that we have that can actually happen. But Boyfriend Material and Husband Material by Alexis Hall, absolutely incredible books combined together of a 2-year time period. This book itself was only a 10-month time period. But absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.